I know this might sound crazy, but it looks like tech companies are starting to realize that those annoying human employees are sometimes actually useful. For the past couple of years, all we have heard is that AI will soon be able to do pretty much anything and will inevitably take our jobs. This narrative was pushed by tech giants that cut jobs to reduce costs while wooing investors with promises of enormous AI-driven productivity gains. Smaller companies joined in too, mostly because adding AI and agentic to a struggling product was cheaper than admitting nobody wanted it. I swear this AI narrative got so annoying and over the top that I prefer to spend my days reviewing 30-year-old code than keeping up with the news hype cycle. But two recent stories caught my eye, so in this Monday morning review we'll look at what happens when fairy tales finally collide with the boring reality of running a company. The first interesting update comes from Amazon, which should be known as the company who gave birth to revolutionary productivity concepts like token maxing, where its employees were doing fake AI work to get ahead on an internal leaderboard. Just like any other tech giant run by billionaires with fun little projects like launching rockets into space or breeding cows to create the highest quality beef in the world, Amazon has been aggressively pushing AI adoption across the board. Last year, CEO Andy Jassy told employees that the company expected generative AI to reduce its corporate workforce over the next few years. Amazon then eliminated around 30,000 corporate roles across 2 rounds of layoffs while telling the remaining employees to use AI, experiment with agents, and learn how to get more done with smaller teams. As we all know, these layoffs are in the headlines for years at this point, and people are already celebrating the death of the tech worker. Meta has laid off roughly 30,000 employees across multiple major waves of reductions since late 2022. Google laid off more than 15,000 employees through a mix of high-profile mass terminations and rolling silent job cuts since 2023, and Oracle laid off more than 20,000 employees over a 12-month period ending in May 2026. But here is the really interesting bit. When you look into it, you'll find out that despite the loud layoffs, in the past 3 years, Google increased its total headcount by 16,000 people, and they now have more workers on payroll than in 2023, basically erasing the impact of its mass layoffs. Meta's official headcount also increased by more than 8,000 employees in the past 3 years. So these numbers tell a much less dramatic story than the one we were sold. Clearly, the layoffs are real and thousands of people lost their jobs, but these companies did not suddenly learn how to operate with dramatically fewer employees. They closed projects, removed management layers, and cut teams that were no longer considered important, but at the same time, they continued hiring in AI, cloud infrastructure, cybersecurity, and every other area management had recently labeled strategic. Calling this an AI transformation made an ordinary corporate restructuring sound like the company had discovered the future. In reality, however, this is just the result of a bad management and overly optimistic CEOs overhiring after the COVID era. Zuckerberg, for instance, said that Meta had assumed the pandemic-driven shift toward online commerce would remain permanent. I made the decision to significantly increase our investments. Unfortunately, this did not play out the way I expected. When Google did its layoffs, Sundar Pichai stated, "We hired for a different economic reality than the one we face today." And this has affected the entire tech sector, not just the giants. So a company can fire 10,000 people from one part of the business, hire 12,000 somewhere else, and still generate headlines about AI replacing workers. The layoffs are announced loudly because investors enjoy hearing about lower costs and pain inflicted on the middle class, while the hiring happens slowly across hundreds of teams and rarely receives the same attention. And if you think I'm exaggerating here, consider that even the people selling the technology don't believe the story. Altman has said publicly that almost every company doing layoffs is blaming AI whether or not it is actually true. Deutsche Bank analysts predicted in January that AI redundancy washing would be a defining feature of 2026, and Oxford Economics concluded that firms don't appear to be replacing workers with AI on any significant scale. The technology may be changing which employees companies want, but the promised collapse in total headcount has yet to materialize at several of its loudest supporters. And the Amazon story becomes even more interesting when you look at how some of these AI systems are performing inside the company, because they recently discovered several internal AI projects with completely uncontrolled spending. A funny example that shows how crazy things have gotten mentions the use of Anthropic's Claude Sonnet to match authors with product listings on Amazon's store. The project failed to launch successfully, accumulated a bill of $1.8 million, and exceeded its original budget by 860%. It continued running for 5 months before anyone noticed. I don't know all the details, but I believe this problem could have been easily solved with conventional code and a much cheaper machine learning model, but there is no fun in that these days. Another project involving financial auditing tools generated $500,000 in unexpected costs, while a logistics project burned through another $100,000. Amazon engineers described mistakes that used to be trivially cheap becoming catastrophically expensive after AI models were placed inside the workflow. Keep in mind that this is Amazon, the company behind the world's largest cloud platform, and an enormous collection of tools specifically designed to stop companies from accidentally spending $1.8 million on cloud infrastructure. The problem comes from the way agentic systems operate. An agent rarely makes one model request and returns one result. It receives a task, generates a plan, calls tools, reads the output, and decides what to do next. A regular software bug might waste a small amount of CPU time, but inside an agent, the same logical error can produce a growing cloud bill every time the system confidently tries again. And since model providers charge for tokens, every unnecessary retry has a direct financial cost. This is a key detail that is not addressed nearly as much as it should be. There is endless discussion about the economics of large language models and whether companies like OpenAI and Anthropic can eventually become profitable. And the usual response is that their revenues are growing extremely fast, enterprise adoption is accelerating, and companies are spending more money on AI every quarter. All of that may be true. But how much of this growth comes from stable products that genuinely save companies time and money, and how much comes from executives handing every department an AI budget because they are terrified of missing the next technological revolution? Right now, thousands of companies are running pilots, building internal chatbots, testing agents, and attaching language models to workflows that worked perfectly well before anyone touched them. When the dust settles, a lot of these experiments will disappear, and a lot of people are in for a big surprise. Several major American companies have already started hiring again after spending more than a year treating every additional employee as a failure of automation. Don't get me wrong, some automation will still happen, but these companies reached the part of the experiment where someone needs to deploy it, supervise it, and turn the output into something customers will pay for. And all of a sudden, juniors are interesting again. After years where companies reduced entry-level hiring because junior work appeared easy to automate, they are discovering that junior employees do a lot more than produce basic code, reports, or support replies. It's funny to see that after several years of layoffs, extravagant predictions, and endless discussions about autonomous agents, companies are rediscovering a fairly basic limitation. And here is your awesome trivia for the day. In 2014, Toyota started firing robots. At its oldest plant in Japan, the company put humans back onto lines that had been fully automated for years. The decision was made by Mitsuru Kawai, who joined Toyota as a teenager, spent 50 years there, and was personally picked by Akio Toyoda to run the program. After years of automation, they were facing a huge problem on the assembly line. A generation of workers had only ever fed parts into a machine and called somebody when it broke, so nobody left on the floor understood the process well enough to improve it. So 100 workstations were converted back to manual work, purely so people could relearn how the parts were actually made. As a result, waste in crankshaft production dropped 10%, and in one case the production line got 96% shorter. Kawai explained that machines only repeat what they're told, and to be a master of the machine, you need the knowledge to teach the machine. So Toyota figured out 12 years ago what half the industry is about to pay to relearn. When you automate the part where people learn the fundamentals, you'll have nobody left who can improve the automation. If you like this video, you should consider joining our community where I'm posting more dedicated weekly content. Please don't forget to smash all the buttons, and see you in the next one.